Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Attacking Third. It's another episode of this great podcast. But sometimes when you do podcasting here, you come across some good people here and great people. So again, I've got my right hand man Austin Hamill with me. Gus will not be making; he'll be back next week. But I've come across a man who is notorious, knows the Devereaux Sports playground. He kind of knows it, us a little bit here, and he's done a wonderful job producing our shows from time in and time out. Our man Bill Hepner, what's up, Bill?
What's going on, guys? Good evening. Glad to be here. Welcome.
Fun.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. Bill Kornfield is with us today. Bill, it does an awesome job. Of course, I've seen Bill in the press box covering the Union. We always know him with from Last Out Media with John Barcher and Vinny Quinn, the good friends of ours. Bill, what's going on, man? What have you been up to?
Oh, just putting the grind to the grindstone and enjoying trying to make sense of the Flyers podcast that I'm doing, obviously with the big draft picks that they made, and then just trying to understand what this Philadelphia Union soccer team really is. That's really what the big question is after about halfway through the season, a little bit more than that at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
has been very very strange the way they've been playing the past few months,
Yeah.
especially after that game on Sunday. Man, that was because Pat and I did the post game for that, and it was just up and down. It was just a very bad. I wouldn't even say it was a really bad game for Philadelphia, because it wasn't like the worst game that we've had, but it was definitely a way better game for Atlanta for sure.
Yeah, I think and this is one of the downsides of Jim Curtin. I think the Jim Curtin tenure has always is a net positive. Like, you can't complain about a Supporter Shield appearance or a win, a MLS Cup final appearance, and deep playoff runs over the last couple of years. But what his negative is, and it's a glaring negative, is every once in a while, and it happens a lot, is they play down to their opponent. I mean, Atlanta should be a team that they beat pretty handedly. And this is a really strong team in the Philadelphia Union. And it's just one of those things that's very, very frustrating to watch and you try and pin what the problem is, and it's an up and down thing. It's not just the starting 11, it's the entire bench, and it starts with the coach. And I think, knowing Jim Curtin, he'll be the first to admit that too. Like, he has his guys play down to their opponent every once in a while, and it's very, very frustrating.
Yeah, for me, like Bill, so I looked at this team, and for the past late May into all June, they looked really, really sharp. They taking care of business. Obviously, Carranza and Daniel Gazdag being your one-two punch offensively. But now I look at it, has this team struck midnight? And I did say to Jim Curran in the press box, I said, listen, you won against Miami, hooray, at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, you beat the worst team in the league, but Atlanta is right behind you in the standings, and they're kind of breathing down your neck right now. So what's going to be the big adjustment? And obviously, he's not going to give the X's and O's of what's going to, how that's going to play out. But I would expect a better answer that you did on Sunday. I mean, because I feel like when they shut down Carranza, there is no option B. I mean, where is down Gaza? Where is the offense to go with it? And you can't expect your midfielders to always produce and bail you out of trouble. And you saw that. I mean, we love it. We love Raho, who's been having a solid year. But again, MIA. I mean, they really shut these guys down. And they, like I said, there was no answer. And you guys, you have Thiago Almada, who kind of really set the tone for the game for Atlanta. We all know he got the free kick, gets his own rebound, makes it, makes things happen. And then he sets a big play up towards the end of the game. And like I said, Philly really didn't have an answer for it. I mean, so what can you break down on all that?
Yeah, I think it's, again, one of those things, like, there's no real deep scoring options. You have Gazdag, you have a little bit Mikel Ora, but even him is kind of a disappointment in terms of what his expectations were for when he got here. And it's just kind of like you're dealt the roster that you're given, and what the Union pride on is building from the depths of their academy and bringing these guys up. That's why the Aaronsons are so big, and the like. They just loaned out a gentleman that's 19 years old down to Austin FC because he's homegrown, and he's kind of making his way through the ranks, and they just don't have a spot for him on the top squad. So I think this is and it's an owner that doesn't want to spend a lot of money, and that's just the reality. Like the biggest cash cow that you can probably get is if you eventually down the line sold a guy like Andre Blake, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon, because if you don't have Andre Blake, look what's happened. I mean, he's down at the Gold Cup performing for Jamaica, who's now in the knockout round, so you're not getting him for a couple more weeks potentially, and that's not a good thing for this team.
Yeah, it's going to be really rough to have to deal with. The longer that Blake is away, the more the defense is going to have to pick up. And the just like we saw not having Wagner over the weekend, it definitely proves to be a very glaring thing when one of your key pieces on the defense is not there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's like I said. That's again, you're not having Wagner there. You're not having Andre Blake, because there was a couple plays where I would say, yeah, Andre Blake would have stopped that. Where Joe Benek didn't have the answer. He kind of like saw things go by him. I'm like, yeah, Andre Blake is making that stop, and like you said, with him not going to be in your lineup, that's going to hurt the Union in the standings big time. So, I mean, when the time things are said and done, you could be back to square one of early May, where you're the outside looking in, and I hope that I'm wrong about that. I'm hoping that this team can turn their heads around. And again, like the playbook for against Miami 2 weeks ago was protect Joe. Let's build a wall around them. Let's make it difficult. Let's force these guys to shoot and make outside ridiculous shots. Let's play man-to-man coverage. Let's play some kind of zone, something to protect Joe where he's going to have an easy day at the office. But on the flip side of that, you're not always going to play against Inter Miami. Inter Miami is trying to lose until Messier shows up. They have the white flag up in the air. They don't care what happens. They're there to just make their trips. They lose. They don't care. You're not, like I said, you have a tough schedule coming up. And now you have the LA Galaxy coming up, which is, okay, could be another W. But, after that, you got Nashville. You're right back to facing some contenders. And then it's just like, guys, what are you guys going to have an answer for that? You know what I mean? So it's going to be very interesting, coming down the stretch for your Philadelphia Union. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, Bill, I mean, I don't know if they're going to have that style of play, like I said, going against these upper echelon teams. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, I'm always conflicted, especially the last 2 seasons, with what quality of the Union we're going to get. Because if you look at last season, right around when they were competing in the CONCACAF Champions League, because of what the priority was at that time, they were playing really low, like not quality starting 11 in the regular MLS games. And you saw that again this season. And then they started to get going, and all of a sudden they were back in the supporter sealed contentions race. Obviously, you could argue that they won it after the controversy of what the tie was, whatever those circumstances were with LAFC. Now it was kind of like, it felt like that was a little bit the same. Again, it's all about what Jim Curtin does in behind closed doors in the locker room, because what we see is an Atlanta team and a Miami team, you can play down to that of team at sometimes, but because for Miami's case, you had the crowd in it, you were at home, and you're obviously going to bank on those kind of wins, because the Union had an unbeaten streak up until earlier this year that crossed several seasons. So it's one of those things, like, you hope that they come out firing it on Saturday for a late night game. And it's also, I saw this stat, it was one of the few, I think it was the first time in 2.5 seasons, maybe even more, that they had a shutout loss by multiple goals. So it wasn't just a 1-0 loss. It was so this is very abnormal for the Union to see what we saw against Atlanta the other night. For tomorrow or for Saturday night in 2 nights time, I don't expect that. I see a pretty good turnaround time.
Yeah, so do I. I think they're going to turn everything around, especially on Saturday. And we got to remember, too, Atlanta did get slapped in the face by this Red Bull team losing 4-0. So, I mean, they would have to play with some kind of swag, some kind of aggressiveness to answer back. And just like you said, though, you would just figured also the Union were going to have some kind of mojo heading in that game as well, coming off the big win against Miami. You're going to go down in Atlanta, and you're going to click like you did on all cylinders. But I caught something, though, Miami, and I don't know if Atlanta took something out of Miami's playbook. The one play where Miami on the, you know, opened up the second half where they kind of had the whole Union defense shift to the left, and he found somebody wide open to the right, and it was the same kind of play the Atlanta just ran. And you have the top, assist player in the league, in Thiago, and he winds up finding what's his name, Flan. I don't know, I kind of butcher his name there, but finds him wide open, and then he makes a bank there. So again, this is this defense, but it needs to turn things around. Like I said, needs to play a little better, and like I said, the offense, Jim Curtin, like you said, needs to go back to the drawing board and find ways to get down Goslock busy because he's been MIA for these past couple games.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also going to be how important you protect the keeper because again, you're not going to have Andre Blake on Saturday night. So, do you build that wall again? Do you have a less aggressive defense that on the attacking third, and you're just kind of like doing a shorthanded offense because you're protecting your own keeper to get the team going. So it's a very like counterbalance of what Jim Curtin is thinking. And if I'm him, I would not be shocked if he plays very, very aggressive to get Gazdag going. That's not totally crazy, but I also wouldn't be shocked if you saw a very like just bland and vanilla type of game, and you just hope that I wouldn't be shocked, especially because you have what's it called, the League Cup, where they're doing the next tournament with Tijuana as the opening team at the end, towards the end of this month. That's another tournament that they have to prioritize. Like, how is he going to handle that? And that's another wrench in the machine on what is the Union going to be when we get towards the end of this season. And because especially with the expanded playoffs, that they're going to make it. It would be an absolutely catastrophic failure if they fail or if they miss the playoffs. But again, you have more of these chances at silverware, which is the ultimate goal in these tournaments. So what does the team do? Or how does Jim Curtin do this?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that's just going to be, hoping that the rotation that you have will work. But a lot of the issue that we're seeing is in the attack and in goal, in the drop off between talent, going from a guy like a Mikhail Ua or a Julian Carranza down to a Chris Donovan, or going in goal from Andre Blake to Joe Bednick this year, where last year you would go down to Corey Burke and Matt Freese, who both were exceptional talents. Not saying that Bendick and Donovan aren't good players. It's just that the talent level just isn't there the same that you saw last year with the guys that we had for those backup positions. And it's going to be a real test for the back end of this whole rotation to see how they can do going forward. I mean, you're getting a lot of very good runs from Quinn Sullivan. I personally feel like he should be seeing more time over Donovan right now in terms of that late game sub. I still, every single time it happens and I see Alejandro Bedoya in the 11, I don't understand why it's happening to open a match. Jack McGlynn has proven that he's deserving of a spot there. Even just the formation against Atlanta, which is really weird. You went with 3 main defenders on the back line in Harriel, Elliott, and Glesnes. And then you did 2 wingbacks in Flock and Bizo, where Flock isn't really that kind of a guy. He's more just a midfielder who can mildly facilitate around the talent that's there for him. And having him essentially have to go one-on-one on outside runs on Atlanta, they were really exposing him. So it's going to be like after that kind of a game, how a team just clinically just really pulls you apart piece by piece. It leaves a lot more questions than it does answers for anything going forward.
Well, the team's just getting older. Like Alejandro Bedoya is victim number 1 of Father Time. Like, and you always think about like how, because there's not a big break between seasons, between the MLS season. It ends. The MLS Cup final was in early December. No, it was in early November because it was the same day the Phillies lost the World Series. So you have the November, December, January, and then by February you're going down to Clearwater, just like the Phillies are for spring training. So there's not really a big break. So the question is this team just tired? Like the bench is the bench, and the starting 11 hasn't changed. There hasn't been a lot of change from this season to the last season. So is it just exhaustion? Like they finally, like, they're getting a year older, and it's kind of like, this is who they are. Like, you push your chips in for one final time, and it's kind of backfiring on you.
Yeah, and
Yes.
like you were saying, Bill, with how they how they counter and how they press up very high, it's a lot more footwork. So it's definitely, having that fatigue set in is going to be, especially in such a long haul of a season compared to the past couple of years where you didn't have as much cup play. You're seeing a lot more guys. I don't really want to say bailing on runs, but it's like they're, a lot of the runs are like, this is a lot more than usual. So you're definitely starting to see those kinds of early signs, and you really hope that, it doesn't, spell a disaster for this team for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bill, that's another thing. So I listen to Austin, I listen to Gus. They always fight over Bedoya. Why is he consistently in that starting lineup? Like you said, he's one of the prime victims of Father Time, and yet he's getting the starting rotation. And does Jim Curtin not feel? Does he not trust his bench to bring somebody off from bench that could fill his role to bring up some production? I mean, what's going on there?
I think it's really a matter of pedigree. I mean, Alejandro Bedoya, he's a former guy that played for the United States men's national team. I believe he was part of that 2010 World Cup, maybe 2014 even. But
yeah, he was there for both.
Yeah, so like he's a United States national. He has plenty of caps on that team, ton of experience. I mean, he has the pedigree. That's really what it comes down to. So it's kind of one of those, we don't know how good, and he could turn it on in any minute. That's the other thing. Like, all of a sudden, at the turn of a hat, Bedoya is back to his prime self in 2014 and 2010 that we've seen on the national stage. And even last season, let alone those years, like last season, he had a really good year. The year prior, when they won the Supporter Shield, just as good. So it's one of those things where it's almost like denying reality. Like when we like none of us want to accept like we're another year older, or we're getting a little bit up there in terms of speed and age and all of that. So like, is it a combination between Jim Curtin and Bedoya just going, okay, this is who you are now, but you're the captain, so I can't name another captain until after you leave, which is not for another couple of seasons.
Right, and like I said, this team is now currently sitting in the 5th seed. They're 10-6, and like I said, this is one of the pinpoints that are hurting them instead of making it better. Where do you, like you said, we're just about coming on the halfway point of this team. What is this team to you?
Average. Like, I think they're sitting exactly where they should be. Like I said, after the Champions League and the CONCACAF tournament, where they go on a high, they make the semifinals again, and you're kind of like, okay, how good are they? And then they go on a little bit of a hot streak, and you're like, oh, okay, the Union season starts now. Like, this is it. I don't know. Like, there's too many question marks, because again, they didn't make a lot of moves in the offseason. They kind of just said, we're going to run it back. Hopefully the Sixers learn from this and don't run it back and just see what they can do. Yes. But I think they'll make the playoffs. They might get hot. And you know what? I wouldn't like the top seed is kind of a curse. Obviously, they made the final last year as a 2 seed, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But like, it's kind of one of those things where, maybe you don't want that bye in the offseason, especially under this new format. Do you take that chance and you actually go into the wild card round, which I believe is the bottom 4 seeds, 5, 6. Well, I guess it was 6, 7, 8, 9. But do you play for that and just? It's a totally different strategy too, because of that of the playoff format. So I think I'm not hitting the panic button yet. I know we're in early July and almost to the point where the playoffs are really starting to heat up. But like, give me until like the middle of August before I'm like, oh, okay, this is bad. They're just average right now. But they can turn it on at any moment, because we know how good they can be.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that statement. It's definitely in terms of their level of play so far, where they are positioned at 5th, just barely behind 4th, is definitely where they should be. Especially when you think, all the tournaments they've had to play so far this year. I do feel like, they got hot at a good point to maintain a position in the top half of the table for the Eastern Conference. And cooling off now isn't a bad thing because you don't want them to cool off in the like being in a dead heat near the end of the year. So I feel like this gives them time to be able to, play through Leagues Cup, see where they stand when, if and or when they finally step out of it, if they get eliminated or if they win it all, it gives them the chance to now be like, hey, well, all right, we still have some season left. Let's go ahead and turn it back on. And they could, granted, they could probably be a pretty far out comparatively to where they are right now with top-seeded Cincinnati, but there's still plenty of soccer left to be able to find that good stride again and make that push right before the year ends.
I know, and I'm curious too because of the break that they're getting. Like the MLS season is going on a pause, at least in the group stage, and then it's carrying on. Like they have a gap between, I think it's the end of this month. So they play New York City, and then they go on this 3-game or 2-game bend between Tijuana and Querétaro, and then they don't play Dallas again until August 20th. Like that's a huge gap to reset. And Austin or you, Pat, like if they go far in this League Cup tournament, they even win it. Do they even prioritize the MLS Cup? Like they're just like, okay, we got our silverware for the year, and we don't have to like put a high eggs in our basket for the MLS Cup. I wouldn't be shocked by that if they just go, we'll see what happens, but that's not a priority anymore because we won our silverware.
Yeah, I feel like the priority is always going to be MLS Cup. That's your league championship. You always want to be able to win the league, but being able to add on other trophies on the path to that is always a plus.
Yeah.
You can never go wrong with being able to stack a couple extra trophies on the shelf and then still save that space for MLS Cup if you happen to get there.
Yeah, the new double. It'll be the North American double, like we see in the English Premier League.
I can't wait until we see a North American treble, man. It's gonna
exactly.
It's gonna be phenomenal.
U.S. Open Cup, the League Cup, and the MLS Cup. I guess that's how it goes.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be so good.
Yeah, like I said, to me, this is all like a winning all the. It's like winning an all-star tournament. Great, but at the end of the day, now it's winning about the MLS Cup. But I'm like you. I want to think a little bit, outside the box here. I want to think, I'd rather just take the first, give me the first round L, and this way I can still get my. Like Austin said, getting tough, getting all the hardware is all good for accolades and getting some momentum, but if the end game is to win the big MLS Cup, and I need to rest a couple players, even for Jim Curtin, I need to start figuring things out for the rest of this league. I still got another half of MLS soccer to go. I need to come up with some better game plans and all this stuff. I need to rest guys. I need to take I need to fall in the sort of on some of the season the way I've been coaching. I need to come up with better game plans. Even he said again the big win against Miami, we got to play better. And I never really pay attention. I'm like, dude, you won 4-1. Like, you should be, go home and eat a cheesesteak. But then, and then after Sunday, I'm like, oh, well, there is a couple deficiencies and all that stuff. There is a couple problems. So if you, like you said, Bill, if I'd rather just, take the first round exit, get myself together. And, but this isn't just me being a fan of playing fantasy world. Players don't want to lose. So I totally get it. They're going to want to play their hard lights out. But I'd rather for them to take the first round exit, get yourself together. Like you said, you're not going to play a while till August 20th. So from August 15th to August 20th, there's no MLS real considered play. So I would take the step back and just get myself together, regroup, and come out swinging all cylinders.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting on what that first lineup looks like on July 22nd against Tijuana. After this string of games here, starting with Saturday against the LA Galaxy.
I really do feel like the tail end of that stretch of games, you're going to see more of the second team guys getting some looks, just because of the fact that you want to have your main 11's legs fresh for when you go into League Cup play. So it's very possible we see a bit of a deep rotation move for the final game before we go into that. But of course, it's always going to be one of those games. It's essentially like that Doc Rivers style scheduled loss at that point when you see like Chris Donovan's your starting number 10, and you're just like, okay, Donovan, Sullivan, Jesus Bueno. I would have said Brandon Craig, but now he's down in Austin. But like guys like Matt Real and stuff getting starts. Like you're going to see a lot of that near the tail end of this stretch of games before you hit League Cup play for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Well, before I, and I want to get into this whole Brendan Craig, trade thing here, but I got to get in one of the great sponsors here in Philly Sports Trip. If you're looking for a relax time here, look, at the end of the month, July 28th to July 31st is a trip to Pittsburgh with Philly Sports Trips. Go through phillysportstrips.com, tell them Edge of Philly Sports sent you. And and listen, not just baseball trips, they got football trips, they got union trips. I mean, guys, go to Philly Sports Trips and tell them EOP sent you. Now back to my man Bill Kornfield. Bill, like I said, does a phenomenal job covering the Flyers. He has a Flyer podcast. He does a great job covering the union. Bill does it all, man. Bill, like I said, anytime there's a man, guarding a net, that man's on to it. So, but Bill, real fast, before we go any further, in this conversation, where can the people find you on all your social media plugs?
Yeah, thank you. My personal Twitter at Bill Kornfeld at BILLKORNFELD. Orange Backcheck is the podcast. Just search us at O Backcheck, covering all things Flyers. Obviously, big week, big last couple of weeks here for the team. So figuring out what the hell it all means and how bad are the Flyers going to be next season. That's really the question.
I did want to touch just for a quick second on the Flyers.
Yeah,
Since I did see that you covered the back check. What are your thoughts on the Mark Stahl signing?
I think what Danny Briere is doing is just getting a bunch of these back end defensemen and blue liners that have nothing more to prove, and they're just like help. He's there to continue the culture that Tortorella is building, and you're just kind of like, okay, Tortorella can do his job as a coach in implementing the culture, but a player that can do it as well. It's why a guy like Scott Lawton has so much respect from Tortorella, because of how good he is, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well. I think that's all Mark Stahl is. Like, he's just a guy to get you to that next level. He's not going to be here when the team's good, obviously. It's just kind of like you're filling a gap for what you need now that obviously you lost Provorov, you lost Kevin Hayes, and it's just all these gap fillers to fill out the squad. It's very like 2015, 2016 Phillies-esque. Like, you're just plugging guys in to like see what you can get.
Yeah, like he's basically the Flyers version of signing Carlos Santana.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect comparison. Exactly.
Yes,
and then this whole thing with Tony DeAngelo, like they want to trade him back to Carolina, but the league's like, no, you got to wait.
Yeah, and that's completely Chuck Fletcher's fault, because he doesn't understand how the contract and in the CBA works. Like, Chuck Fletcher set this franchise back so much worse than we anticipated, and what Briere has to do is totally unfair for a first-time GM, but there's apparently no other man for the job, and we'll see how it goes. But that's I don't care. Like, I hated the Tony DeAngelo signing at the time, and it's all the more reason why I hate it now. Like, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, dude. Bill, like I said, I agree with you. I was not all about it, but like I said, I understand. It's weird because the Flyers have become the talk of the town, and it's weird. Like, I didn't think, I think it would be all about the Phillies, Union, and Sixers, but no, like, I guess because the Sixers are having this same old go around, full circle back to second round knockouts, all that stuff. It kind of with the Flyers, there's only one way you can go from now. It's up, right? Yep. So you're gonna. And they told you, you're going to have to trust their process, and you're going to trust, so I get their story. I like it. I like the direction with Briere and Jones are doing. I love it. I get it. I understand what this year is about. Look, you go off their first round draft pick, right? He's not going to be ready for another couple of years to break it down. So again, it's telling you that the process of the Flyers are not going to be relevant for another couple of years. So I'm okay with it. But, like I said, they get it back on track here to the union aspect of things. Listen, they make a huge, not a huge deal, but they wind up, like Austin says, they made a little bit of a trade. They wound up getting rid of Brandon Gregg to Austin FC for a draft pick, for a 2024 draft pick. Your thoughts, Bill?
I'm a little surprised. I thought like I said earlier, what the Union really pride themselves on is building the academy and then growing them here at home and then bringing them up to the first squad. Uh, it came down to, I guess they just don't think they have a spot for him, which I thought was a little surprising. Because I think this kid has a lot to show, and Austin FC got a good pick, especially because the MLS Super Draft is completely irrelevant anymore, especially for teams like the Union. The Union don't need to get players. Like their most significant player they ever got in the Super Draft was Andre Blake, and they traded up to get him. That's the guy. That's the last time you ever really needed the MLS Super Draft. So I always like holding on to your prospects and all that in your homegrowns. Unfortunately, that didn't happen here. I don't know what the thought process was, other than we just don't have a spot for him, which is sad, really, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I was chatting with Pat about it when it happened, and I feel like the main thing about this move is to give Brendan Craig meaningful minutes on a starting 11, because the loan is only for this season. So regardless, we're getting that 125,000 in general allocation money and the pick in the Super Draft next year. So he could start from here on out with Austin FC, finish the year whenever they happen to end their playoff run if they make the playoffs, and then Philly could be like, oh, yeah, you like him? Yeah, so do we. We're taking him back. And then he could potentially, if, a guy like an Elliott or a Glesnes happens to go out in the winter transfer window before the season starts up, you have that option of another guy that's seen meaningful time, understands the system very well, and could possibly slot in behind a guy like a Damian Lau as your backup center back at that point. Because of the fact that you look at this roster when everyone's here and not on international duty, it's going to be Glesnes and Elliott, Damian Lau, and then everyone else is behind them. So guys like Matt Real, Brandon Craig, like they're your essentially your last ditch effort style options. So getting him this time and being able to get a decent payback for him for just a rental is perfectly fine in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so like I said, because I was asking Gus and Austin, I said, who do you guys, and I'll ask you too, Bill. So who got the better of the deal here? Who got the, is it the Union building for, kind of the future and win now kind of mode? Is it, did Austin FC kind of know like, we're in a contention span. We feel like this is a piece that can get us over a hump kind of a deal. What is it to you? And who won the trade here?
I mean, anytime that you can trade a guy and then immediately at the end of the season tell that team, "Hey, we're taking our guy back," is a win. Like you win that trade 99 out of 100 times. Really 100 times out of 100 times, especially if it's a guy like Brandon Craig that you have high hopes on. And to your point, Austin, like if this kid is immediately in the Austin FC starting 11, all the more better, like to get him those reps that he needs, that he doesn't have the ability to get because of the logjam here in the Union. So if by the end of this, you're like, oh my God, Brandon Craig might be in our starting 11 as a Philadelphia Union player next season, and he got 10 games, 15 games under his belt, all the more better. And we just got a draft pick that we have no idea what it'll be, but it's whatever. It's more value. The more value out of this trade is the knowing that Brendan Craig is getting minutes in the starting 11 at Austin FC. The MLS Super Draft pick is just like whatever at that point. Like that's the crux of it. Knowing that he's going to get X amount of games under his belt that you can immediately call him back to and say, great, you're now in our starting 11 under the Union for the 2020-24 season. Amazing. Like that's what you need for a 19-year-old.
Yeah, I feel like the main winner here is Brandon Craig out of anybody.
Yeah.
He gets the opportunity to play for another club here in MLS, basically essentially study a potential playoff opponent, for an MLS Cup final. And on top of that, get the meaningful minutes and then potentially come back home and be able to have a better position if the transfer window works the way everyone expects it to. But you think if the transfer window works the way it normally does, especially going into next year after you see the level of play that some of these guys have put together, it's very possible we won't see Jack McGlynn here. It's very possible that Kai Wagner finally gets the transfer out to Europe that everyone's been expecting him to get for the past couple of years. Maybe even Elliott or Glesnes or both go. Fingers crossed that none of it happens, but it's just one of those things with the caliber of talent that they are here. Multiple time defender of the year guys in Elliott and Glesnes, multiple time goalkeeper of the year in Blake. So there's definitely that possibility that if everything goes as expected for the player themselves, that they get that better opportunity. And seeing Brandon Craig be able to go and get that opportunity now,
I'll be right back, guys.
Before the transfer window hits, it's just that much more perfect for, like you said, a player that young being able to get that meaningful time is going to be perfect.
Yeah, I think it's also just a matter of, like, to your point about Glesnes being gone, Elliott possibly being gone after this season. After putting all your chips in this season, running it back with the starting 11 that you had that lost to LAFC in penalty kicks, I mean, you're going to have a completely different squad, more than likely. I would bet a lot of money that this is a completely different roster, but it's still a competitive roster, and that's really what matters, obviously, for the fans and for the team and everybody in the area. But you shouldn't take too far of a step back with that replenishing, relying on your homegrown academy. And if the anchor for that is all of a sudden Brandon Craig, which I don't think it will be, because that's a lot of pressure on a then 20-year-old, obviously, for next season. But still, anytime you have a guy like that, to immediately slot in on a different on a totally new revamped Union team, I'm going to be for it 100% of the time.
Absolutely, and I'm actually just bringing it up because Jim Curtin was had a few things to say about the Craig transfer, and one of the main ones that caught my eye was he said, "quote He's still a player that we believe in very much here and want him to get more MLS minutes." So that's like the main thing that I kept saying, is that getting him that time on another club, so that way you don't have to worry about him being abroad and potentially having that loan get extended more likely than not, is just perfect for him. Like he's still in development technically. I mean, he's been on the senior club for a couple of years now. He's been here since he was 18. But these minutes matter, especially with how young he is and how long your career could potentially be in this league and going forward if you happen to go abroad. There's a very fine window with soccer where you are technically in your prime, and it's, I want to say, between the ages of like 23 and 28.
Yep.
Because once you get past there, unless you're a guy like a Lukaku or like a Ronaldo or a Messi, like there are certain guys that transcend what that window closing actually opens even further than you would expect. So
the people that what the MLS is trying to do is get the guys that are actually in their prime. I mean, it's great that Messi's coming over, but it's not the Messi that the three of us grew up with. The Barcelona years, like even the PSG years, aren't that what it was between him and Ronaldo when they're both in the La Liga. Like that was some of the greatest soccer we've ever seen, and we probably will never see it again to that level. I mean, it was insane. What the MLS really is trying to do, and I'm not, like, what the big difference here to you listeners, like, I'm not saying Brandon Craig is the next American Messi. I'm done labeling anybody the American Messi. We tried it with Pulisic, and it blew up in our face. Like it's just huge disappointments. It's unfair, but what would be a solid growth factor for the MLS, because that's what they're trying to do, obviously, to your point, Austin, is get the guys that are actually in their prime and making a huge impact between those ages of 23, 28, 29, before they hit that 3-0 number. And you're like, all right, he's still good, but he's not what he was. And it would be nice if he can get some love on the United States men's national team. Like anytime that someone gets appearances on that too, especially with this window coming up for 2026, where it's obviously being hosted here. This is a huge, like, not just for the Union, like these next 3.5 years are monumental for U.S. soccer for the next 50 years. Like it's crazy. And and we have Greg Berhalter as the gym manager, like at the end of it. Like, what the hell?
It still is. I feel like my brain is still trying to process that whole thing of like, wow, I was so excited that Berhalter was gone. Like, let's go. Time to develop this incredible young talent that we have coming out of U20s by the time the World Cup gets here. This is the perfect window for it to. They brought him back.
Yeah. And they're going to win. Like, they're going to be up here in the final for the Gold Cup in a couple of weeks here. They have Canada. What is it? Is it tomorrow or Friday or Saturday? They have Canada coming up, and then who knows what happens. But chances are the number 2 team in CONCACAF will probably make the final unless they completely fall flat on their face, which is not out of the possibility for the United States men's national team. But say that they win the Gold Cup, and then you're going to tell that manager, hey, we're replacing you with Greg Berhalter. Like, what? Come on. Like, it's such a joke. Guy got bullied by parents.
Yeah, you really do know that BJ Callahan has to be the most miffed man in soccer right now because of the fact that he's putting together such a solid run. Like you go out and you just absolutely demoralize Mexico. Then you go and you beat Canada to win a tournament. And then you come into the Gold Cup, you tie with Jamaica, and then beat the bricks off of St. Kitts and Nevis and Trinidad and Tobago by a combined score of 13-0. After this next match, after this Gold Cup run is over, BJ's back to whatever the hell he was doing originally.
Yeah,
and it's such a shame because they are rallying around BJ Callahan.
Yep.
Like, you've got Jesus Ferreira, the first player in men's national team history to get back-to-back Addies in international competition. You get George Mihailovic. I finally got his name right, Pat. George Mihailovic.
Yes.
Getting his first couple of goals. You got Gianluca Busio getting his first goal. Caden Cowell, I think it is, or Caleb Cowell, getting his first. Like, you have a very good talent pool for this team, even without your Pulisics, your Aronsons, your Jedi Robinsons on the roster, and it's all going back into the hands of Greg and his dope shoes. The only thing I can say about Berhalter is I love his shoe game.
Yeah. That's all he has.
If that's the one positive you have as a soccer manager, dude, I'm out.
It's out.
I'm out. As much as I love a sick pair of kicks,
like, as much as I like him and we were criticizing him, and to bring this all the way back and bring this full circle back to the Union, I'm shocked they did not tap Jim Curtin. Like, I think he would be an incredible manager. Let me roll that back. I think he would be a good man. I think he would be on level, if not better than Greg Berhalter. He's certainly a player's coach. I mean, look at him and Martinez's relationship over the years. I mean, especially after they made it to the final last year, like that celebration when Martinez comes into the press box and is like, or into the conference news conference room and is like, "Come on, coach, time to celebrate." Like, this guy has the heart and soul of those players in his hand. Like, he knows how to handle a locker room. I think that would have been. I think Jim Curtin, because he's from this area, won't leave except for that. I think he would bolt in a minute.
Oh yeah,
for that job, and I wouldn't blame him. But I don't know who. I like the president of United States Soccer Federation, whatever the case is. I don't know what they are entranced by with Berhalter, but I don't get it. I don't get it. I'd rather almost have you could convince me more with Bruce Arena again for the 2006 bull crap that happened there and that failure. You could convince me of that better than Berhalter again. And it's just tough. It's really really tough.
And going back to what you were saying about Curtin with the men's national team, from what I had heard, I can't really confirm if it was 100% true or not because I wasn't there in like the thought process, but there was rumor that the potential move was going to be, if it wasn't going to be Berhalter, it was bring in Jesse Marsh, former manager of Leeds United, and have Jim Curtin be a part of his staff. Okay. Which I feel like would have been perfect because Jesse Marsh has a lot of time spent with a few of those guys. He had 3 or 4 of those guys out there in Leeds United, so he has a rapport with some of them already. Yeah. And then Jim Curtin also has a rapport with a handful of the guys. Zach McMath and Christian Pulisic both came up through the Union Youth Academy. along with Brendan Aronson, Mark McKenzie, and if he happens to get there, Paxton Aronson. And then you look at the next batch of guys that are going to come through to the senior squad potentially in, Quinn Sullivan, Jack McGlynn, Brendan Craig. Like, it's guys that Jim Curtin has developed that you're seeing a lot of on the men's national side that are getting a lot of talk.
A lot of the union, like the pipeline for the United States men's national team, and obviously it's already impacted them with the Aronsons, or Aronson and hopefully Aronsons, but like the union are making inroads into the pipeline for the United States men's national team talent pool, and that's going to help them retroactively on every scale, like competing in every tournament as this League Cup continues to grow. Obviously, Champions League, if they qualify for that next season, barring anything. And then obviously MLS Cup. Like, this is all soccer is the one sport that hockey is another one too. We were talking about that Brandon Craig needs that growth and that reps. I mean, you see that too with anybody in hockey. I mean, listen to any of our episodes of Orange Backcheck. We're talking about all these guys needing reps, even Carter Hart. But like, if you have guys that are getting reps, not just for the union, they're getting reps to lead them to the United States men's national team. That is a gold mine of talent and money and influx for the union itself. And it's only going to help. So again, it's why this window of the next 3.5 years is so vital to the success of United States men's soccer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, Bill, all that success will have, like you said, will come into play and will help this team move, the men's U.S. men's team moving forward. But before we, you give our breakdown of the Union taking on LA Galaxy, let me get in quick of these sponsors real fast. Guys, David R. Cherry Esquire is your guy from Work and Conversation, Medical Vehicle Accidents, Personal Injury, Criminal Law. Guys, if you have any of those issues, hit up my man, David R. Cherry Esquire, today at 610-565-0300. And, of course, ShareTicketsTown.com. Great price, no hidden fees. The price you get is the price you see. Use the promo code EOP10, 10% off. Comes a long way. If you have an upcoming sports, concert, or theater you guys want to go check out, family operated and owned since 1946. Again, www.sharetickets.com. And of course, guys, one more, Dolan's Bar. Guys, if you're looking to get, if the Union somehow drop the ball in this one and they lose, Saturday, this wimply, stinky, no good LA Galaxy team, you guys deserve to go yourself, head out to Dolan's Bar, Ridley Park, 24 East Sellers Avenue, Ridley Park, Quiznos, music, great times. Guys, if you need a drink, go out to Dolan's Bar today, and please, you'll never know who's going to pop up. I hear a bunch of Philadelphia legends come up there. So, guys, if you want to chill, like I said, if the Unions somehow screw this up, you deserve a drink. Anyway, guys, back to the Union talk at hand. Bill, listen, Union, this stink bag, no deserving LA Galaxy, who are sitting at pretty much at the bottom of the barrel. However, they just beat the world champions, LAFC. So, do we smell a little bit of a trap game coming up? Do they have a little bit of momentum, or do you think the Union are going to go in there after losing to Atlanta and they're going to go in there and handle some business?
They've only beaten LA Galaxy once in their history. Like, that's the problem. And I didn't even realize this. This is the first time they've played LA Galaxy in 4 years. They haven't played them since 2019, which is wild to me. Obviously, we're living
they're both totally different teams now, too.
Yeah, like look at if you go and I'm curious now. I need to go look at those rosters. I mean, they're probably literally night and day.
Yeah.
I think the only players that are still part of this Union club that faced off against that LA Galaxy club are Andre Blake and Alejandro Bedoya, and I think Jose Martinez, probably, like those three, and that's it. The only one that I can really see going through the LA Galaxy roster that was on there when they last played him was Javier Hernandez.
Yeah. So I like, my gut tells me that this is going to be a really, really ugly loss or a really ugly draw with no chance of a win. But this Union team is too damn talented from on paper. Like again, at some point they have to trend back upwards, and maybe it starts in LA, but then you got the month break coming up. But I don't know. They I don't want to say they have to win this game. Like 3 points is obviously the best outcome and doesn't bury them if they only get a point. They have to come away with something. Like you can't drop this whatsoever. Like you dropped Atlanta, and that's really disappointing because despite how close they are in the standings, they're better than Atlanta. They're better than a lot of these teams, other than maybe Cincinnati, who's on just an absolute tear. But they need to be they should be able to beat LAFC, or excuse me, the LA Galaxy. Like this is a winnable game because everybody's time is yeah, it's just one of those. It's their
Yeah,
time.
yeah, and I just hope, like I said, like you said, you haven't beat LA Galaxy. I'm hoping this is not, it says trap written all over it. Just because the way, like you said, you lose to Atlanta, you know, all the momentum, everything's on paper for this Union team to go into LA and to smack around this Galaxy team, and I just feel like uh, I'm gonna pump my brakes until I see it. I need to see I would like to see a 3-0 win. That's to me be glorifying. Like, okay, last week was just nothing but a hiccup. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of win I need to see. But how about you, Austin?
Well, you just look at the numbers for LA Galaxy in terms of their I guess you could say their metric numbers. Um, Expected goals per game is right around a 1, and their expected goals conceded per game is just about 2. So,
Mm-hmm.
and also their play at home has not been great. They have 3 wins, 2 draws, 4 losses at home. Obviously, you know, playing on the road is always tougher in MLS, so you have to give LA Galaxy an advantage there. But just their last 5 at home, they've only won 2 out of that last 5. And
Wow.
I guess you could, even if LAFC was the home team against LA Galaxy, you can still consider that a home match for LA Galaxy because of the fact that they're both like basically a few miles apart, honestly. And you're not going to have Chicharito because he's doing Gold Cup. So if he's even part of the selection, because the Mexican side right now is just an absolute dumpster fire at the current moment. As much as their talent is
They
very
bought
solid,
to Qatar.
dude. Yeah, I was literally about to say, you drop one to Qatar and you have to be in a feel bad vibe, dude. Like, there's no way you go and play against Qatar and drop one. It's just really bad. So, you know, it's very possible they still have Chicharito. He's always going to be dangerous. Just you can, you know, the sheer level of competition that he has played in coming into MLS, you think that he maybe still has some of that stride, even though, you know, the years have definitely not been kind to him over the past few for sure. Just overall, like their form overall in terms of points per game, it's just been very poor. So you hope that Philadelphia can walk in there and just do the job and just get out and be able to, even if you walk away with 1, it's better than getting none, especially coming off of the way you played against Atlanta. Like you need to come out in your normal formation, your normal high press, just really get under the skin of LA Galaxy and do it early and do it often.
Well, let me
Because
ask you.
the second you can get them off of their vibe at home, they're going to be done for.
Yep.
Let me ask you. Do you think the tape's out on them? Like, okay, let's just shut down Carranza and that's it. And then you guys have to have an option B. And we still against Atlanta, you don't really have one. I mean, to me, I don't know. Like I said, do they have another, high power offense guy they go to? No, like I said, I would love to see Carranza. This is the kind of game you need guys like to go off on. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, not really. I mean, they have guys not more than 3 goals on this team. I mean, like I said, Tyler Boyd, 3 goals, Preston Judd, 3 goals. I mean, like I said, you should be able to take full advantage and spank this team. But like I said, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if there's tape out on the Union. Like, okay, let's just shut down Carranza and see what else they can come up with. Like I said, Austin, you and I have talked about it. It's coming off the bench. I don't know if they're offensively have that guy, you know what I mean, or so forth. I don't know. I'm not sure. You know what I mean. I'm a little hesitant on this game here.
I said it post game on Sunday, and I will say it again. I need more from Ua. I need Mikhail Ua to get into form because for some reason he just hasn't been himself this year. And I feel like if he can at least find the back of the net at least twice in this stretch of games before the break, he'll come back with a fresh mindset and have that killer's mentality that he normally has. If you can get him going, because the fact that they're pinching down on Carranza and Gastag, you're gonna walk away with 3 points. You just need to be able to get someone going, and I feel like he's due.
Yeah, he's overdue. Ua is definitely overdue to come up with some kind of productivity. How about you, Bill?
No, I actually completely agree. I've always liked. I absolutely love the Mikel Ora signing when they made it. What was it? 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons,
Yep.
whatever it is now. Like he is signed up to be that guy when no one else is contributing. Honestly, he was supposed to be one of the guys. So he needs to get going. I think he's. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he's just not playing up to form. If he's not all of a sudden happy. I don't think there's any implications of that he's all of a sudden not happy here in Philadelphia. But I mean, this guy, he's got to get going, and this is a prime opportunity for him to do that. Because because LA is down some good team members that are good because of the Gold Cup. And Miko Ora is right there for the taking. Like this is a classic moment when he could really step in and make an impact.
Oh, absolutely agree. Like I said, this is all the signs. I think all three of us can agree. We're in the same canoe. Like this is a game for Ua to like I said, to relive himself, to come alive, to show him like, okay, I'm one of the high power offensive guys on the squad here, and like I said, let LA Galaxy smell themselves a little bit. Okay, we took care of the champions of LAFC. Let them smell themselves a little bit because this Union team is going to come in there hungry. And one thing about Jim Curtin, he's going to figure this out, and it doesn't take long for him to come up with an X and O, go back to the chalkboard to figure out what the hell went wrong here in this Atlanta game. He'll come up with somebody, and if it ain't going to be Ua, it's going to probably be somebody from your midfielders to come bail you out. Maybe somebody from the bench. Maybe a Glesnes gets busy. Maybe a Barajo comes up with that long distance crazy shot that he did about a couple of weeks ago. Maybe somebody comes up big to deliver a nice punch.
How about just Bedoya? How about Bedoya finally makes a real impact on this team? Like that, that'd be real nice. Like the captain of the team could really make an impact here if he wanted to, and prove us wrong. I mean, we're all chalking him as a loss to Father Time all of a sudden, as we talked earlier. Be nice to him for him to prove us wrong. That'd be nice.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, aside from the three guys on the attack and potentially, like you were saying, Ale getting going, getting Wagner back is going to be big. Wagner seems like he's going to be available for selection. He was dealing with that hamstring issue, but before they got on the flight to Atlanta, Curtin said that he was doing some running that day. He was back on the field. He said Curtin thought that was very positive to be able to see him getting back to work, and hopefully, he'll be able to, be in good shape, get some good service in for guys like Ua and Carranza, even on some set pieces. Have a guy like a Glesnes or an Elliott just putting their height into position in the box there. So I feel like it's going to be a game that's going to have to be won on all fronts if you want to be able to feel good going into your next match for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, this is again, if they could have like a 3-0 win over LA Galaxy, I would imagine that would help your momentum going against Nashville. And you're going to need all the momentum you can get, especially playing against that juggernaut of a team. And you got to be ready to go on all cylinders because that team, I know they switched over this year to come over to the Eastern Conference, but boy, they've shooken the tree a little bit because they caught a lot of teams by surprise, and they're one of the top 3 teams in the East. It's you have to answer the bell on that one. You're going to have to, like I said, you have to be ready to go. So again, take advantage of this bad team, beat them up, however you got to do it. But like I said, beat it convincingly. Like I said, maybe get Ua going, get him going offensively. Like I said, maybe all man Bedoya, and I think if Bedoya could at least get one in this game, I think that just rallies the whole team up. I think you get guys, out of nowhere will want to make a goal. You know what I mean? They'll respond big time if Bedoya can find his way, find the back in the net. So, but look, Bill Kornfield, again, thank you for checking in with us. You can catch Bill Kornfield on the Back Check podcast, Talking Flyers. Go check it out. Love hanging out with my man Bill. Bill, like I said, a couple years ago, he was doing producing work with me and Austin over there on Last Out Me with John Barger and Vince Quinn. I mean, the guys, dude's awesome. So, guys, go give Vinny, my man Bill Kornfield here, a follow, like, wherever you get his stuff, man. Go give him a follow on all social media platforms. Bill, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, until next week, we will see you again.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
See ya.
Evan. See ya. All right.